Hello, and welcome to Subtle Historian for Sleep. Tonight, our journey takes us back to the rugged hills and sun-drenched valleys of ancient Greece. We are traveling to a city-state whose very name has become a legend, a byword for discipline, courage, and military perfection. We are going to Sparta. The stories of Sparta are famous. We think of King Leonidas and his 300 warriors at the Battle of Thermopylae. We imagine the impenetrable wall of bronze shields and spears, the invincible hoplite soldiers who were the masters of the ancient battlefield. But tonight, we will look behind the legends, behind the gleaming bronze helmets and crimson cloaks. We will explore the stark, austere, and often brutal reality of the society that created these warriors. It was a world that willingly sacrificed art, luxury, and even the bonds of family, all for a single, overriding purpose: the strength and security of the state. To understand Sparta, we must understand the machine that forged its citizens, and that machine began its work in early childhood. So, find a comfortable position, let your body settle, and allow your mind to drift back in time. Our story begins not on a battlefield, but with a small child, on the day his life is changed forever. Imagine yourself here. It is your 7th birthday, but there is no celebration, no special meal, no gifts. Instead, this day marks a profound and irreversible separation. You are taken from your home, from the care of your mother, and you say goodbye to the life you have known. From this day forward, your family is the state. You have just been enrolled in the agoge, the rigorous state-sponsored training regimen that will dominate every aspect of your life for the next 13 years. You are brought to a communal barracks, a simple, unadorned building that will be your new home. Here, you are grouped together with other boys your age into a pack. An age all the world of domestic comfort is gone forever. You will sleep not in a warm bed, but on a rough mat of reeds, which you are taught to gather yourself, without a knife, from the banks of the river Euphrates. Your identity is systematically stripped away. Your hair is cut short. You are given a single garment to wear, a simple, rough woolen cloak known as a This one cloak is all you have for the entire year, offering little protection from the cold of winter or the heat of summer. You are expected to be barefoot at all times, to harden your feet for a life of marching and fighting. You are no longer the son of a particular family. You are a ward of Sparta, a component in its great military machine. Life in the agoge is a life of calculated hardship. The most constant companion is hunger. The food you are given is meager and deliberately insufficient. Your most famous meal is the black broth, a dark, unappetizing soup made of pork, salt, vinegar, and blood. It is fuel, nothing more. This constant state of hunger serves a purpose. You are encouraged to steal food, to supplement your diet. But this is a test. The crime is not in the stealing, but in being caught. If you are discovered, you are punished severely, not for the theft, but for your lack of cunning and stealth. It is your first lesson in the arts of subterfuge and resourcefulness. Your days are filled with relentless physical training. From dawn until dusk, you are engaged in exercises designed to harden your body and spirit. You run for miles through the rugged countryside. You practice wrestling, boxing, and pankration, a form of ancient martial arts. You learn to throw the discus and the javelin. Fights between boys are not just tolerated, they are encouraged. They are seen as a crucible, a way to forge resilience, weed out the weak, and establish the natural hierarchy of the group. The training is not only physical, but psychological. You are taught to endure pain without complaint. The most famous example of this was the annual festival at the sanctuary of Artemis or Thea, where boys were brought before the altar and flogged. The purpose of this ritual was to test their endurance. The highest honor a boy could achieve was to withstand the ordeal without uttering a single cry. It was a public demonstration of the Spartan virtue of absolute self-control. You are also trained to be laconic, to speak with a biting wit and an economy of words. Your elders, the magistrates, and older warriors of the city will constantly question you, testing your intelligence and your composure. A clever, concise, and respectful answer would earn a nod of approval. A slow or foolish response could earn you a sharp physical rebuke. The structure of the agoge is hierarchical. The younger boys are supervised and disciplined by the older ones, the irons, young men of about 19 who have completed their own training. These older boys act as your mentors and your tormentors, leading you in exercises, organizing mock battles, and punishing any sign of weakness or insubordination. It is their first taste of command, and your first experience of absolute obedience. This is a childhood devoid of affection, comfort, or personal freedom. Your life is a constant test. Every day is a struggle for survival and for acceptance within the brutal, demanding system. The goal of the Agoge is to completely erase your individuality, to break down the boy who entered at age 7, and to remold him into something else, a perfect hoplite, a citizen soldier, whose only loyalty is to his comrades, and whose only purpose is the glory and preservation of Sparta. The Agoge was designed to create the perfect soldier, a man who would stand and die for Sparta without question. In the year 480 BC, this system, and the men it produced, would face their most legendary test. But we will witness this famous battle not from within the disciplined ranks of the phalanx, but from just behind it, through the eyes of the silent, unseen figures who made the Spartan war machine possible. Imagine yourself now as one of the helots who marched to the hot gates. You are a helot, a member of the vast state-owned population of enslaved peoples who work the land and serve the Spartan citizens. Your life is one of toil and subjugation, and your fate is bound to the master you serve. When he is chosen by King Leonidas to march north to face the invading Persian army, you are chosen to go with him. You are not a soldier. You are a servant, a baggage carrier, a part of the logistical train that follows the warrior. The march north is long and arduous. While your Spartan master marches with the rhythmic, untiring gait of a lifelong soldier, carrying only his shield, spear, and sword, you are burdened with his other necessities. You carry a heavy sack containing barley meal, dried fish, a skin of wine, his bedroll, and any spare equipment. You walk alongside hundreds of other helots, a silent, laboring column in the shadow of the 300 warriors. You observe them constantly. Their discipline is absolute, almost inhuman. They march in near-perfect silence. They make their camp each night with a swift, practiced efficiency. They eat the same simple, bland food that you do. They are a terrifying and alien caste of men who hold the power of life and death over you and your people. They are not your heroes, they are your masters. Finally, you arrive at the pass of Thermopylae, the place they call the Hot Gates. It is a narrow defile, with the sea on one side and a steep, impassable cliff on the other. It is here that the stand will be made. While the Spartans and the other Greek allies fortify the pass, your work begins. You help to establish the camp in the rear. You gather firewood, and you prepare your master's meager meal. You take his bronze shield, heavy and dented from years of training, and you polish its surface until it gleams in the sun. You check the edge of his short sword, the ziphos. You are a servant, preparing your master for a battle in which you will have no glorious part to play. In the days before the fighting begins, you watch the Spartans with a sense of detached bewilderment. They seem utterly unconcerned by the presence of the colossal Persian army camped just beyond the pass. They pass the time exercising, stripping naked to practice their drills, and they sit calmly in the open, combing and braiding their long, flowing hair. A Persian scout, seeing this, reports back that the Spartans must be mad, but you know better. You have heard the whispers among the other helots. This is a ritual. It is what they do when they are preparing to fight to the death. When the battle begins, you are in the camp, far behind the fighting wall. You cannot see the front line, but you can hear it. The sound is a terrifying, deafening roar that echoes from the cliff walls. It is the sound of the Persian war cries, the deep guttural shouts of the Spartans as they hold the line, and the constant percussive clang of metal on metal, of spear on bronze shield, and underneath it all, the high, thin sound of men screaming. Between the great waves of the Persian assault, the grim work continues in the rear. Wounded Spartans are brought back, their bodies gashed and bleeding. You help to wash their wounds and bind them with linen strips. You carry the bodies of the fallen and lay them out in rows, their faces pale and still beneath their heavy bronze helmets. Here, stripped of its glory, you see the true, grim price of the battle. For 2 days, the impossible happens. The small Greek force holds the pass against the might of the Persian Empire. But then, word spreads through the camp like a sickness. A traitor has shown the enemy a hidden path through the mountains. You are being outflanked. The position is lost. King Leonidas makes his decision. He dismisses the other Greek allies, sending them away to carry on the fight for another day. But he orders his 300 Spartans to remain. And as his attendant, you must remain as well. You are not consulted. You are not offered a choice. Your fate is inextricably tied to that of your master. Your presence is required to serve him, even in death. The final hours are a blur of confusion and dread. As the Spartans prepare for their final, hopeless stand, you are caught in the closing trap. You are not a warrior. You are not part of the heroic last charge. You were likely huddled in the rear, perhaps handed a spear, and told to defend yourself as best you can. As the overwhelming tide of the Persian army finally pours through the pass from both directions, you witness the collapse of the final line, the fall of the men you have served, and the end of your own life in a battle that was never yours to fight. History will remember the 300 Spartans who died for the freedom of Greece. It will carve their names in stone and sing of their sacrifice in poems. But it will not remember you, or the hundreds of other helots who died beside their masters at the hot gates. You died not for freedom, but because the system that enslaved you demanded it. Your anonymous sacrifice is a silent testament to the dark, oppressive foundation upon which all of Sparta's glory was built. The silent sacrifice of the helots at Thermopylae was not a unique act of heroism, but the grim, logical endpoint of their existence. To truly understand Sparta, to look into the engine room of its society, we must now turn our full attention to this vast, subjugated population. The helots were not merely slaves. They were the foundation upon which the entire Spartan way of life was built, and the object of its deepest and most abiding fear. The origins of the helots are a subject of quiet historical debate, but it is generally believed that they were the original inhabitants of the lands that Sparta conquered in its early history, the regions of Laconia, and most importantly Messenia. Unlike slaves in other Greek cities, who were often foreign captives and were owned by individual citizens, the helots were a collective state-owned property. They were bound to the land, assigned to the agricultural plots, or kleroi, that were owned by Spartan citizens. They could not be sold away from this land, and they lived in their own communities, maintaining their own families and a semblance of their own cultural identity. Their primary function was to work the land. They were the farmers, the laborers, and the herders of Sparta. It was their unceasing toil that produced the food that fed the entire population. This economic arrangement was the absolute bedrock of Spartan society. Because the helots took care of all manual and agricultural labor, the Spartan citizen, the Spartiate, was completely freed from the need to work. This liberation from labor was what made the Spartan system possible. It allowed every Spartan male to dedicate his entire life, from the age of 7, to a single purpose: full-time military training. The invincible Spartan hoplite was a luxury item, paid for by the sweat of a helot. The numerical disparity between the Spartans and the helots was immense and a source of constant, gnawing anxiety for the Spartan state. At times, it is estimated that the helots outnumbered the Spartan citizens by as much as 10 to 1, or even more. The Spartans were a small, armed elite, living precariously on top of a vast, potentially rebellious population. This fundamental imbalance shaped every aspect of Spartan law, culture, and foreign policy. Their entire social structure can be understood as a highly efficient and ruthless system of internal security, designed to control the Hilth population and crush any thought of rebellion. This control was maintained through a system of institutionalized terror. The most infamous instrument of this terror was the Cryptia, often translated as the Secret Service. The Cryptia was a force of elite young Spartans, the most promising graduates of the Aguch. As a final test of their skill and their loyalty to the state, they would be sent out into the countryside with nothing but a dagger. They were instructed to hide by day and to travel by night. Their mission was to hunt and kill any helot they found on the roads after dark. This was not random violence. It was a calculated policy of preemptive assassination. The members of the Cryptia were tasked with identifying and eliminating any helot who showed signs of leadership, physical strength, or a defiant spirit, anyone who might become the nucleus of a future revolt. It was a way to terrorize the helot population into submission and to cull its strongest members. Every year, the ruling officials of Sparta, the ephors, would ritually declare war on the helots. This seemingly strange declaration had a chilling legal and religious purpose. By being in a formal state of war, any Spartan citizen could kill a helot at any time without incurring the religious pollution or the legal guilt that was normally associated with the taking of a human life. It effectively stripped the helots of any right to exist, making their lives entirely subject to the whims of their masters. Other forms of humiliation were a constant feature of their lives. They were forced to wear crude and identifiable clothing, such as a dogskin cap, to mark them out. They were sometimes forced to get drunk and perform degrading acts in the Spartans' communal dining halls, serving as a cautionary example to the Spartan youth of the undignified nature of intoxication and the loss of self-control. Despite this relentless oppression, the Messenian helots, in particular, never fully lost their sense of collective identity, and they did, on occasion, rise up in massive bloody revolts. These revolts were brutally suppressed, but the fear of another one was a constant shadow in the Spartan mind. This fear explains much of their famously conservative foreign policy. The Spartan army was the most powerful in Greece, but they were always reluctant to campaign too far from home, or for too long, lest they leave their city vulnerable to an uprising from within. The helot system was the dark, unacknowledged secret of Spartan success. It was the engine of their economy, the source of their freedom from labor, and the ever-present threat that justified the brutal severity of their way of life. The perfect discipline of the Spartan soldier was forged in the crucible of the agorge, but it was paid for, maintained, and made necessary by the unceasing, subjugated labor of the helots. The Spartan state was a rigid pyramid, built upon the subjugated labor of the helots, and cemented by the absolute discipline of its male citizens. But there was another group within this structure who lived a life that was, in many ways, the most unusual in all of ancient Greece. They were not warriors, but they were expected to be as strong and as loyal as any hoplite. They were not confined to the shadows of the home, but were visible, educated, and economically powerful. To complete our picture of this strange and austere world, we now turn our attention to the daily life of a Spartan woman. While women in other Greek cities like Athens were expected to live a secluded and domestic existence, confined to the private quarters of their own homes, your life as a Spartan woman of the citizen class is one of remarkable freedom and public presence. Your purpose is not hidden away. It is a clear and vital state duty to bear and raise the future defenders of Sparta. Your day does not begin with your husband. He does not live with you. Until the age of 30, he lives in the communal barracks with his fellow soldiers, and even after that, he takes his main meals there every evening. Your home, the household, and the estate are your domain. You wake in a house that is functional and unadorned. Spartan law discouraged luxury and the accumulation of personal wealth. So your home is not filled with fine pottery, art, or imported furniture. It is a space of sober utility. Your primary and most important role is that of a manager. Your family's wealth is not in coin, but in the ancestral plot of land, the kleros, that was assigned to your husband by the state. And because your husband is a full-time soldier, the complete administration of this estate falls to you. After a simple breakfast, you meet with the chief helot, who oversees the agricultural work. You are educated, you can read and write, and do arithmetic, and you use these skills to manage the estate's production. You review the stores of grain, wool, and wine. You give instructions for the planting or the harvest. You are not a laborer, but a director. The productivity of your land, worked by the helots under your command, is what pays your husband's dues to his communal mess hall and sustains your family. This economic power, the direct control over the family's means of production, gives you a status and an influence unknown to your Athenian sisters. A significant portion of your day is also dedicated to physical fitness. In Sparta, a strong state required strong children, and it was believed that strong, healthy mothers would produce strong, healthy babies. And so, unlike anywhere else in Greece, you were expected to participate in athletics. You might spend part of your afternoon at a designated field, training alongside the other young women of your class. You run, you wrestle, you practice throwing the discus and the javelin. You wear a simple, short tunic that allows for freedom of movement, a practical garment that scandalized other Greeks, who were accustomed to women being heavily draped and hidden from public view. This physical training is not for amusement. It is a core part of your public duty. This public role extends to your social life. You are not confined to the company of other women. You attend religious festivals and public events, and you are known to be outspoken, to engage in conversation, and to voice your opinions in a way that would be considered shocking in other parts of Greece. You are a visible and integral part of the city's life. But all of these duties, your management of the estate, your physical fitness, your public presence, all point towards your single, most vital function, motherhood. When you give birth to a child, it is not considered a private family affair. The infant is examined by the elders of your tribe. If it is deemed healthy and strong, it is allowed to live. If it is found to be weak or deformed, it is taken from you and left to die in a chasm on the slopes of Mount Tegatos. It is a brutal system of state-sponsored eugenics, and you are expected to accept its outcome with stoic resolve. You are the first and most important teacher of the Spartan ethos. You raise your sons to the age of 7, and in those few short years, you are tasked with instilling in them the core values of your society. You teach them to fear dishonor more than death, to value the state above all else, and to show no sign of pain or weakness. When your son is taken from you to enter the agoge, you are expected to show no sadness, only pride. Your role is perfectly encapsulated in the famous words you are said to have spoken to your son as he leaves for war, handing him his great bronze shield. Return with this shield, or on it. It is not a statement of callousness, but the ultimate expression of your social contract. You would rather see your son carried home dead upon his shield, having died honorably in battle, than have him return alive in disgrace, having dropped his shield to flee. Your life, though privileged in its freedoms when compared to other Greek women, is as tightly bound to the demands of the state as any man's. You are the manager of its wealth, the bearer of its future, and the fierce guardian of its unforgiving code. Tonight, we have journeyed into the stark and demanding world of ancient Sparta. We began with the Spartan boy, his childhood systematically erased and replaced with a brutal regimen of hardship, all to forge him into the perfect soldier. We stood in the shadow of the Battle of Thermopylae with the helot, a servant whose life was an anonymous sacrifice, the unseen and unacknowledged price of Spartan glory. We examined the oppressive system of helotry, the dark engine of fear and labor that powered the entire Spartan state. And finally, we entered the world of the Spartan woman, a life of surprising freedom and immense public duty, dedicated to producing and shaping the next generation of warriors. Each of these lives was a component in a complex and rigid machine, a society that had consciously decided to sacrifice everything: comfort, art, freedom, and family for the sake of collective military strength. It was a world of profound and unsettling contrasts, a state that celebrated the freedom of its citizens, but was built on the backs of a terrorized slave class. A society that produced the most feared warriors in the ancient world, yet was itself in a constant state of fear of the people it subjugated. And now, as our journey through the rugged hills of Laconia comes to an end, let these stories of the distant past begin to fade. The relentless drills of the agoge are over. The clang of bronze on bronze has fallen silent. The long vigil of the Spartan woman is done. The disciplined, austere, and brutal reality of their world now sleeps in the quiet pages of history. Let the dry winds of ancient Greece blow away from your mind. Feel the simple comfort and the gentle peace of your own time, in your own quiet space. There is nothing left for you to do but to let go. Allow the stillness of the night to envelop you, and let the slow, steady rhythm of your breathing guide you now into a deep and restorative sleep.